Okay, so today we're going to take a deep dive into something that's, pretty hot right now in the news.
Yeah.
This whole idea of a potential U.S.-Canada trade war.
Hmm.
And I know a lot of people are probably thinking like,
Right.
wait, Canada, our friendly neighbor to the north?
Hmm.
But trust me, this is a pretty big deal.
Yeah.
Basically, Canada is saying they're not going to just sit back and take it. If President-elect Trump
Right.
slaps tariffs on their goods, and we're going to, dig into all that.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things that makes this whole situation so interesting
Absolutely.
is that it really shows how, the global landscape is shifting.
Yeah.
We're so used to thinking about the U.S. and Canada as like best buds,
Right. Right.
like always there for each other.
Totally.
But this whole trade thing has the potential to like really shake things up.
Oh, absolutely.
And I think for our listeners, it's important to understand just how intertwined
Yeah.
the U.S. and Canadian economies actually are. We're talking billions and billions of dollars in trade every single year.
Yeah, it's huge.
Everything from cars to lumber to energy.
Yep. It's a massive flow of goods and services back and forth across the border.
Exactly.
I mean, think about it. You probably use Canadian products every day without even realizing it.
Right.
It could be the wood in your house, the car you drive,
Yeah.
maybe even the electricity that powers your home.
Seriously, that's crazy when you think about it.
Yeah, it's a really deep connection that goes way beyond just being neighbors.
Absolutely. And that's why this whole trade war thing has people on edge.
Mm-hmm.
Because if these two countries start throwing tariffs around,
Right.
it's going to have ripple effects that we all feel.
Exactly.
Prices could go up. Certain products might become harder to find.
For sure.
I mean, it's a mess.
Yeah, it's a potential lose-lose situation.
So to kick things off, let's go back to the beginning.
Okay.
President-elect Trump, he's been talking a lot about putting America first. Right.
Yeah, that's been a central theme of his campaign and his presidency.
Right, and part of that has been this idea of imposing tariffs on goods coming in from other countries, basically making them more expensive to protect American jobs and businesses.
Right, the idea being that if foreign goods are more expensive,
Yeah.
then people in the U.S. will be more likely to buy American-made products instead.
And, on the surface, that might sound good to some people.
Right.
But the problem is, it doesn't always work out so neatly in the real world.
Totally, and that's where Canada comes in.
Exactly. Canada's saying, hold on a second. You can't just slap tariffs on our stuff without expecting us to fight back.
And they're not just talking about it, they're actually taking action.
Right. And they're getting pretty specific with their targets, too.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Like, remember that quote from the Canadian Natural Resources Minister, Jonathan Wilkinson?
Mm-hmm.
He said, Canada is going to focus on causing the most pain possible to put pressure on President Trump.
Yeah. Extract the greatest amount of pain were his exact words.
Which is pretty strong language, right?
Definitely. I mean, it really signals a shift in their approach.
Yeah.
They're not messing around.
So one of the ways they're doing that is by targeting,
yeah,
you're not going to believe this, Florida orange juice.
I know, right? Seems kind of random at first.
Right.
But when you think about it, it's actually a very strategic move.
Oh, totally.
Florida is, of course, a major producer of orange juice.
Yeah.
And it's also, importantly, President Trump's home state.
So by hitting Florida orange juice with tariffs,
Right.
Canada is basically hitting Trump right where it hurts.
Exactly. It's a way of putting direct pressure on him.
But it's not just about orange juice, though, right?
No, not at all. Canada's looking at a whole range of retaliatory measures.
Like what?
Well, they've talked about blocking exports of Canadian oil and electricity to the U.S.
Whoa, that's huge.
It is, and it would definitely have a big impact, especially in certain parts of the U.S. that rely heavily on Canadian energy.
I mean, think about it, like the Northeast.
Exactly. They get a lot of their energy from Canada.
And if that supply were to be cut off,
Well, it would definitely cause problems.
prices would skyrocket.
Yeah, potentially.
And who knows what kind of energy shortages there might be.
Right. It's a pretty big weapon in Canada's arsenal.
Yeah, no kidding.
And then there's the issue of critical minerals.
Oh, right. You mentioned that earlier.
Yeah, this is another area where Canada could really put the squeeze on the U.S.
Okay, so for those who don't know, what exactly are critical minerals?
So critical minerals are things like lithium, cobalt, graphite.
Okay.
These are the materials that go into making all sorts of high-tech products, like electric vehicles, smartphones, solar panels.
Oh, yeah.
You know, all the stuff that's driving the green technology revolution.
Right.
And guess what? Canada has a lot of these critical minerals.
Really?
Oh, yeah, they're a major global supplier.
Interesting.
So if Canada decides to restrict exports of these minerals, it could have a huge impact on U.S. manufacturing.
And not just the U.S., right?
No, this would have global implications.
Wow. So this is getting pretty serious then.
Yeah, it's definitely escalating.
I mean, we're talking about potential disruptions to supply chains, higher prices for consumers,
For sure.
maybe even shortages of certain products.
Right. It's not a good situation for anyone involved.
And then there's the whole thing with Ontario Premier Doug Ford.
Oh, yeah, that was interesting.
He basically threatened to cut off energy exports to the U.S.
He did, although he later clarified his position.
Right, but even the fact that he said it in the first place shows how tense things are getting.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I mean, can you imagine if Ontario actually did cut off energy exports?
Well, it would be a huge blow to both countries.
Yeah.
The U.S. would face energy shortages, especially in the Northeast,
Right.
and Canada would lose a major source of revenue.
So it seems like this whole trade war thing is really a lose-lose situation for everyone.
It has the potential to be, yes.
And it all goes back to this America First policy.
Yeah, it seems like it might be backfiring a bit.
Alienating allies like Canada and potentially causing more harm than good.
Right. It's definitely a complex situation with a lot of moving parts.
And for our listeners out there,
Yeah.
I think it's important to really think about the potential consequences of this trade war.
Absolutely.
It's not just some abstract political issue.
Right.
This could have a real impact on your everyday life.
For sure. It could affect the prices you pay for things, the availability of certain products,
Yeah.
even the stability of the global economy.
So it's something to keep an eye on for sure.
Definitely.
And maybe even something to talk about with your friends and family.
Yeah, start a conversation.
Because the more we understand these issues, the better equipped we'll be to navigate them.
Absolutely.
So that's it for our deep dive today.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
See ya.
But before we go, I want to leave you with something to think about.
Okay.
If you were in charge of advising the Canadian government, what other pressure points do you think they could leverage
Okay.
to counter these U.S. tariffs?
Interesting question.
Think about it. What unique resources or industries does Canada have that the U.S. relies on?
I like it.
It's a complex issue, but it's a good exercise to think about the dynamics of global trade
For sure.
and how interconnected we all really are.
Absolutely.
All right, now that's it. For real?
Uh-huh.
Until next time.
Take care.